We just wrapped James Patterson.
We did.
He goes by Jim. We went to Palm Beach for that. Mm-hmm. And I got accused of losing what I thought was the putter cover.
It's the weirdest anybody said putter.
But it was not for the putter.
It was for a hybrid. The hybrid that he teed off with on the par 3.
Oh, yeah.
You were accused of losing the head cover for it.
He forwarded an email. I'm sorry, his assistant forwarded a message from him. They got passed along to me. And
what did it say?
That, you know, basically his wife's going to be mad at him and I'm a terrible caddy. All in a joke. Jim was awesome. And then, to your credit, first Brett pops into my office and says, what?
That Seth discovered that you didn't lose it. It was Jim who lost it.
We have receipts.
Okay, caddy, what club? Oh, this one? Sure.
Wait, I got to take your bag, right?
Sure, yeah. Okay, caddy, what club? Oh, this one? Sure.
Wait.
Yeah, so I was told that happened. And then I'm thinking of on the shoot, I'm like, I don't remember. Anyway, so then I'm editing the footage and I see Jim take the head cover off of his hybrid and just throw it in the cart. And I was like, oh, it must have been his the putter head cover then. And then I get further into the clip and then I see you put the putter head cover back on the putter in the bag. And I was like, I have evidence that Graham didn't do anything wrong.
Now, if you're a good caddy, when somebody throws their cover, you pick it up and...
Yeah, but you're not a good caddy.
Yeah, and it's his fault for not knowing better.
Yeah.
He corrected me that it wasn't a putter cover and reiterated that I was a bad caddy. But the screwed up thing about that is, you know, Mars is longtime sponsor of our show, 14 of our 15 years. Peanut M&Ms are his literal favorite snack, so we bought a big case of peanut M&Ms to give him on the shoot, which is kind of made for a cute moment.
We heard though this was, oh God, well, and this couldn't be better because I'll tell you why. No. I'll tell you why, because I just finished the last thing, which was a Christmas present.
I'm like, oh, it'd be funny to buy him an M&M's
head cover.
Yeah, head cover. Well, I spent $120 on one, and it was for a putter. So I'm going to send it to him anyways. I told him I bought him a putter cover, and that was when he corrected me. Yeah. So, anyways, I'll still send it to him with a note.
Speaking of the golf activity, I thought it was funny watching back that you bent down and you stopped James in his tracks and bent down, grabbed the grass, and threw it up in the air as if you were going to determine.
I looked like I knew what I was doing, right?
Oh, no. Wait. Because you need that to know there's wind?
Yeah, that was funny.
Thank you. We had a little difficulty starting the day out.
Yeah, so not only were we in Palm Beach, but President Trump was headed to Palm Beach. So roads were closed down. Got to the shoot a little bit later. Everyone kind of got to the shoot a little bit later. And we had a 5:40 a.m. Basically call time, like for us in the hotel lobby. So we're headed there very early. Roads are shut down, and we have to find another route. And there were some stressful moments, which the domino effect was kind of everyone getting there late. And there were some things I could have done differently to try to warn Graham, which led you to kind of show up, I think, at like 9:05 when we're set to start at 9.
No, I showed up at 9 exactly.
9 exactly. Yeah. But, so yeah.
Which I like showing up and just going, but I'm always there about 10 minutes early, I feel like. And so I'm never like late. In this one, I was late.
We had turned around because I was like, oh, we're supposed to go left there, and it was blocked off. So we drove up and turned around, and it's still dark, and it's like foggy, and there's police lights everywhere, and there's some guy waving. So I pull up and stop, and then he yells something. So I start pulling up, and he starts yelling even more. And he's like, do you not see me? And I was like, I don't see you. I can't see you at all. I see you moving, but I don't see what you're doing. And he's like, what do you think this means? And I'm like, I don't see what you're doing. So he was telling me to stop, and then I have the vehicle stop, and then he keeps yelling, stop the vehicle, which was annoying.
A little I've already stopped. When that's
well, and then Brett was like,
Secret Service protecting the president of the United States.
Secret Service. I don't think this guy was Secret Service. If he was Secret Service, the physical fitness for Secret Service is loose. I'll say that. He didn't seem like the guy that would be like, yeah, he should protect the president.
Right.
He seemed like a local cop, but he was a and then, yeah, so Brett had to be like, look, we're just trying to, we're supposed to go there. And he's like, well, you're not going there. And we're like, that's obvious, but how do we get around here? And then he ended up telling us where to go. But it was a very annoying start. And then Jim told us, because we were like explaining to him how annoying it was, and he was like, he's here every weekend.
Right.
He does that so if you're gonna visit Palm Beach, go like Monday through Wednesday.
Or when Trump is not president. I mean, I think that was the first time I truly
Is that ever
realized,
gonna happen? He just keeps adding terms. Yeah. I don't know that we'll ever live in that world.
Well, because the traffic affected us after the shoot as well, trying to get to the Miami
It was
airport.
2 hours to get to
And
Miami
then
airport. which
Graham
should've
probably
taken
doesn't know
45
this,
minutes.
but the airport was shut down because Trump flew out of Miami that night. So our flights were about 2 hours delayed. We were about to board, and when Trump landed or tried to leave out of Miami, and so literally we're fighting through traffic because of him. Then we get to the airport, and he's still delaying our day. It was never ending.
We were eating dinner, and we're like as they're bringing the food out, we're like, we board in 5 minutes, but our gate was like right next to where we were eating, so we're just like shoving food in our face. Carlos has like a rack of ribs and all this huge, and we're just like, get that to go. We have to go, and then we get to the gate. And it's like, oh, nobody's boarded yet. Okay, we're fine. Like, that was like immediately, like, okay, we're good. And then 2 hours later, we're still sitting there. And it was just like, Carlos, you could probably finish your dinner. Yeah. They weren't giving us any announcements. There was nothing. We're just sitting at the gate. And we didn't get back till like 3 a.m. It was brutal.
How did you guys feel about no site check the day before for
Sucked.
James Patterson?
Seth had a good moment where he was able to kind of prove it to the Patterson team why a site check is necessary.
Yeah, we were told we didn't need to do a site check. And I was like...
Well, and give the backstory on why you do one.
Yeah, so the reason we do site checks is we're walking into these shoots completely blind. So most of the times we're doing them in our guest's house. So I walk in.
And there are 5 camera angles.
Yeah, there's 5 cameras, so I have to walk in and I have to figure out where we're doing the setup. And sometimes we get to set up the day before the interview, but a lot of times we're doing it the day of. So the whole reason for a site check is me get there the day before, just so I know what we're walking into. If it's a situation where there's a lot of windows, I have to rent extra gear. It allows us to just be as prepared as possible. And in this situation, we get where we're doing our setup. I ended up doing a place where they hadn't offered, which was the dining room. And I wanted to have windows open, but the way the sun was coming in, they were just completely blown out. If I had done a site check the day before, I had to close the windows a bunch, the blinds, and they were asking if they could have them open. And I had to explain to them that it's not going to be possible, it's going to be too blown out. They were like, we just really want it to be open. And I was like, well, if I would have been here yesterday, I decided we were doing it here, I could have had a team of grips come in this morning, and they could have knocked all these windows down and hung nets and to where we could have them open and they wouldn't be exposed and we could see the ocean and everything like that. But we weren't allowed to do a site check, so we have to kind of compromise. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. So it was kind of like a nice moment.
And don't forget, when we first met James in the morning, he tried to give his advice on how you should set up the shot, and which led to a funny moment.
He was immediately like joking and being cool, and I was like, okay, great.
And by the way, he was awesome.
I liked James a lot.
I should say Jim's publicist, who we worked with, was also, in spite of that, incredibly accommodating, and Jim is like the most prolific author on the planet, and I was beyond grateful for the day we had.
I was surprised at how laid back he was through everything. But one of the first things he says was, I've been watching the show a lot. Let's not do let's not do the 2-shot, like the wide shot. And I was like, I have to. I was like, well, there's a look. We have a look on the show that I kind of like, so I want to match. And he was like, I work on movies, so I'm gonna be a pain in the ass. And I was just like.
He even circled back to that reference in the sit-down interview, and you probably didn't even notice it, but we'll play it right here. But he was funny.
Like, him following the look of the show. Who knows if that's even the best version?
So I remember that comment. I didn't have the context.
Yeah. I was really happy with myself. I've grown a lot as a person because I didn't roll my eyes or scoff, and I immediately heard him say it, and my instinct was a little bit annoyed. But then I was like, you know what? He's joking. He's been cool. And then I felt his publicist next to me looking at me.
Oh.
Because she was the one that was asking if we can have the windows open,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Which, by the way, the windows everything looks great. It worked out really, really good. I'm really happy with the look of it. But in a normal situation, that would have been me like looking at the crew and being like, but I smiled and just looked over and she was looking right at me and I was like, I just dodged a bullet. Because
You're growing as a person.
I'm growing. Yeah. But no, Jim was amazing. He was completely just joking around. We sat and talked about golf for like 45 minutes. He was awesome. I liked him a lot.
What do you think of the school?
Thought the school was good. I'm glad it
like
all.
interviewing little kids.
Yeah, I'm
It
glad
was funny
all
watching you
worked
talk
out.
to kids like they were grown-ups. So, what about the new program is most inspiring for you? And they're like 4. Like, he helped me weed my brother's book.
But he got a couple good answers.
He
Like
did.
on the back end, I was surprised at how smart some of the kids were. I mean, they were first graders, and they gave you a couple
But then
legit
one's
answers.
like, I like PE and recess. Or something
Yeah.
like, or
No,
like
it's because-
recess and lunch.
Yeah, and then James was like, oh, math, good. And he was like, I didn't say math.
I said recess.
I said recess.
No, that was good. And I think you were a little nervous because on that there was an hour car ride to St. Lucie. It was at St. Lucie School District, and Jim made it seem like he didn't really have a plan. Even though I was told he does this. Like,
Right. And I knew nothing about what was happening, but I assumed that meant like we were kind of the fly on the wall and maybe I'd jump in and ask a question here or there. And then I find out in the car ride, he's like, kind of like, so what are we doing? And I'm like, what the do you mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm like watching you do your thing. And then it was like, no, I'm leading this and he's...
Yeah, he was like, I think you should lead it. And Graham's like, oh.
Right.
You guys did
I
a
do
good
not
job.
like being the center of attention
Yeah.
in any way. Yeah.
You guys did a good job of balancing it, I felt like, in the classroom, for sure. I'm very happy with what we came away with in the classroom. So I think props to the school for the access, and I'm glad they set that up for us. And they fed us.
And that
Dude, they had a
administrator.
great little spread. That was nice.
Yeah.
It was fun. Everybody was like jamming food in their mouths because we had not had a proper lunch.
We shot through
break
lunch,
that
so we
day.
had to go straight from the interview to that, and then hour-long car ride, and we get there, and they're
And
like,
then
we
we-
have food. And we're just shoving.
And then we left all the good food we did order on the bench in his house, so it was expired by the time we got back.
And then we got McDonald's at the very end of the day.
Right.
Lunch is it's a tough, sensitive subject. There's a reason it's not on the note cards.
Oh, really?
Let's
Wait,
carry
why?
on. Because we should feed the crew, and it was such a tight day. I got to be better on that. Even though we had 3 meals for them, I've got to make sure that there's more time for them to sit down and stop.
In fairness to you, with that one specifically, and I mean, everyone's different. I know there's always time compressed. His person was pushing so hard on cut that like we were a little bit between, with this one specifically, not talking about all of them.
No, yeah.
With this one specifically, we were a bit between a rock and a hard place.
No, and that's what I was trying to tell you. I wasn't making myself very clear, but I was like, because we were going with the schedule like Tuesday before we left, and I was like, just a heads up, like the freelancers are probably gonna be pissed because there's no lunch break. But I wasn't saying like, hey, there was no room for a lunch
Yeah,
break. It
that
just is
one
what
was
it was.
Right.
Side, one thing I want to make sure we get to, and you might get to this, first time ever on an activity, on a house tour, an office tour, you discovered something that our guest didn't know was there, and that is his wallet.
Yeah.
And I kind of didn't sink in real time as much, but
You don't
watching
think he
back,
planted that, right?
I don't think so. I've
Okay.
watched it like 4 times now. I think he was genuinely shocked that you found that wallet. So I don't know. Unless he's like embarrassed that we found a picture of his ex-girlfriend from high school or something like that in there.
I don't
That
know
he's
how
trying
this
to
got here.
What? Huh?
I haven't seen this in 70 years.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But not really much to say. But
Well,
yeah.
there are a million more things we could talk about, including the rushed conversation with the wife. You can watch, obviously, the whole interview on YouTube or listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. For producer Brett and DP Seth, I'm Graham. We'll see you next time.